Hey, how are you?
Yeah, good. Have you got a permit at all?
So the thing is, you're going to need to have your permit if you want to start spray painting on the wall, alright? What's your reason for not having one today? Do you have any ID on you?
Yep.
Should you do more of like tagging things?
Let me just talk to my Sciz for a second and I'll get back to you in a couple of minutes, alright?
Thank you.
If that clip of me being detained by PTOs in Australia told you nothing else, it should at least tell you that even when you're doing nothing wrong, being associated with graffiti is sometimes all it takes for things to go wrong. Any graffiti writer or graffiti artist who's been in the game long enough will have a great story to tell you about a time when they were on a graffiti mission and something went terribly wrong. What you hope for in those situations is that you basically make it out unscathed and leave with a story that's a great one to tell some of your crewmates who weren't there. In fact, I'm certain that a lot of you have some crazy stories that I would love to read down in the comments below about a time when something went wrong during a graffiti mission you were on. And with that being said, today I present to you the top 5 ways a graffiti mission can go wrong. So let's get into it. Now, number 5 on this list to me is a good example of why it's best to try and minimize the number of random, unpredictable variables when you're out on a graffiti mission that can get a graffiti artist in some serious trouble. And of course, those random, unpredictable variables that I'm referring to are those do-gooders getting involved. And what I mean by this is every single person who sees a graffiti writer doing graffiti in any scenario, really, even legal walls sometimes, is going to react differently, and you never really know how they're going to react. The wrong reaction that they might have could cause something on the graffiti mission to go wrong, because those do-gooders, they care so much, right? And for those reasons, you might get the type of do-gooder that feels the need to come and talk to you about what you're doing, or worse, they might make a racket, try and alert everyone in the area about exactly what's going on. Worst of all, you could get those people who are so intent on focusing their negative energy towards somebody else that they'll personally phone the police on you and try and make sure that you don't leave their sight until the police get there, whether that be by trying to fight you or whatever. This is why it's always nice to have someone in your crew who looks like Capital Q and SDK, who's 6'4" or something like that, has a super long beard and sunglasses so that nobody messes with you. Now, the overall lesson here, I suppose, is that inevitably somebody is going to see every graffiti writer doing graffiti, especially those graffiti writers doing quick bombs in city streets or highways, places like that are just plain high traffic areas. But if a graffiti writer isn't doing everything they possibly can to minimize the number of people who do end up seeing them, then they're just adding more unpredictability to their situation, and more unpredictability equals less safety due to their inverse relationship in this case. So I guess before I move on to the number 4 top way a graffiti mission can go wrong, I just want to say, especially to a lot of the younger graffiti writers out there, that although you may see those videos of people doing daytime bombing in heavily populated areas, there's people gawking, there's people staring, don't be fooled by that. You can do whatever you want. I'm not telling anyone they can't do anything in particular, but if graffiti artists aren't going to take basic precautions, their risk itself increases exponentially. So on your graffiti missions, try and be as smart as possible. If it doesn't save you one day, it'll probably save you another day. The 4th top way a graffiti mission can go wrong is a big one, and it really outlines to me why graffiti artists, writers, etc. should be as adaptable as possible. Adaptability and safety go hand in hand, and the issue I'm talking about here is media problems or paint problems. There are so many ways that your spray paint cans or your caps themselves can have some sort of issue that really ruins the graffiti mission for everyone. You can have clogged cans or clogged caps themselves that you really sort of need to finish a piece, something like that. Even semi-clogged cans can be a big pain when you're trying to work quickly. Pro tip with Sciz here, if I'm going anywhere with a backpack, I always try and shake my cans ahead of time and test spray them before putting them in my backpack upside down. This keeps the straw that leads to the valve clear, and you can have the cans upside down like this after your test spray. Furthermore, you do want to make sure that your cans are as tightly packed together as possible, because this stops them from making that nice clinking sound, clinking together. And the way I like to do that is you can use can magnets. To me, those are a pain. So what I do is I actually take a group of 3 cans. That's why I have 3 here. And this is gonna blow your mind. I actually just put an elastic around them. And if you store nice groups of 3 cans together in your bag, they're nice compact together. They're not gonna make any noise other than the mixing balls, of course. And if you do live in cold environments like me most of the year, what I actually like to do is I'll take one of those hot magic bags, heat it up, put it in my backpack, and put the cans in just to keep a nice little cocoon of warmth for your cans to help increase the functionality of them and keep them nice and warm, keep that paint nice and flowy, right? And you can use the hot bag as a bit of a barrier between groups of cans as well to minimize that clinking even further. As far as clogging your caps, making sure your cans don't clog obviously goes a long way towards fixing that. I guess for some of the newer writers, make sure you're always starting your cans up with a fat cap. My personal rule is it should be a New York fat or bigger. A nice orange dot works really nicely for starting a can up, even if you're gonna take it off right after your test spray and throw on a skin capped outline with. I try and throw clogged caps out or separate them at least from the good ones as soon as possible after they clog so that I don't accidentally use them at a future date. And something I really shouldn't have to say, but I probably do have to say, is don't ever leave your empty cans, clogged caps at the spot you're painting, especially if it's a train yard. But these beautiful cans and caps are not the only thing that can have problems in terms of equipment on your graffiti missions, and that brings me to the number 3 way a graffiti mission can go wrong, and that is just frankly having equipment problems. For any bigger missions involving roller paint, a paint bucket tipping can be disastrous. Those paint buckets are very heavy, and it should be planned out very well ahead of time, in my opinion, how you're going to get that bucket paint to the spot and how you're going to get it away from the spot with you at the end of the mission. Problems with crates or ladders can happen on missions as well, and I'm sure eventually it's all happened to every graffiti artist out there. So in those situations, I'd say it's especially important to be adaptable so that you can maintain a calm while you're on a graffiti mission and you don't get thrown off by little things going wrong. I remember on one mission I was on, something went wrong and I basically ended up having to stand on my bike for the entire time to reach the high spots of a piece I was doing. Wasn't the funnest thing, it definitely slowed me down, but that was the adaptability that needed to happen, so I did it. In some cases though, there can be specific problems that make you have to leave the spot altogether and sort of abandon the mission. Now this always sucks, don't get me wrong, but in some cases that can be the best course of action. And I can tell you personally that there have been times when my decision to bail out from a spot has saved my skin in more than one way. So sometimes it really probably is the best course of action. The number 2 top way a graffiti mission can go wrong is a rare one, but it does pop up from time to time, especially for those graffiti writers and graffiti artists who happen to live in dense populated cities where a few train yards are being bombed by many of the same graffiti artists, or the same streets and areas are being bombed by the same people. And the reality is not all graffiti artists are super mature, and some of them really love to engage in that childish beefing with each other, and they just insist on having a problem with other artists, no matter how well you follow the writer's code or whatever else in your area specifically. So obviously fights happen between graffiti writers a lot of the time over paint, or many worse things can happen between graffiti writers and artists as well. And the solution to this, I would say it's a little bit ambiguous in the sense that this actual solution is probably just try and know your graffiti community the best you can can to help you avoid these negative situations and, again, sort of increase your safety, increase the success rate of your graffiti missions. And that's not necessarily to say that all graffiti communities are like that. Some are definitely a little more rugged than others, I guess is the best way to put that. But to those who are watching from an outsider's perspective and aren't necessarily graffiti artists or graffiti writers themselves, all I have to say is there's lots of great people who are graffiti artists, probably just as many as there are great people in any other genre of anything that has great people, if that makes sense. But the number one top way that a graffiti mission can go wrong is obviously when you're doing absolutely nothing wrong and the public transit gronks in Melbourne show up and hassle you for your paint because you don't have a permit. Sorry, just remembering something bad that happened to me. Anyway, more seriously, the number one reason a graffiti mission can go wrong is cops. Just cops, railway police, like I mentioned earlier, public transit officers who aren't even real police because they couldn't get into the police academy. That's why they're public transit officers, just saying. But sometimes for whatever reason it may be, whether that be precautions weren't taken, do-gooders got involved, you were a little too loud in the train yard, you were caught on a security camera. Occasionally police officers do show up, and it is in the most literal sense their business to get involved when they suspect anyone of any illegalities. Now this is the top number one way that a graffiti mission can go wrong, solely because this one is the one that usually directly results in the most dire consequences for the graffiti writer or artist. The idea is usually that a graffiti writer will want to take precautions to avoid this situation entirely so that it just doesn't happen and they don't have to deal with it. Because in most cases it is one of the very worst things you can deal with if you are a graffiti artist. And I'd like to circle back around to my point that this always sucks, but sometimes the best course of action might be to bail out of a spot you were at. Being willing to do that in times of ambiguity can be the difference between a graffiti writer lasting 1 year without any major trouble or lasting 10 plus years without any major trouble if you're a good planner. But I'd love to hear any of the crazy stories that have happened to all of you guys down in the comments below. I will 100% read them and show them some love if you have a great story to share with everyone. I'm sure everyone else will appreciate it as well. On the same note, if you have any other advice to help you guys stay safe out there, put that in the comments as well. The more knowledge we can share with each other and learn from, the better off everyone in our little graffiti community here on the channel is. But whatever the case may be, just be careful out there doing your tags, your throws, and your pieces. If you want your very own tags, throws, and pieces, t-shirt, or sweater yourself, you can check the first link in the description and that'll take you right to the page where you can get those shirts. That is legitimately one of the very best ways you can help support the channel here, and it's greatly appreciated. I talked a bit about the incident I had over in Melbourne with the PTOs there while I was painting in the great city of Melbourne. If you want to know exactly what happened in that situation in more detail, you can check that out with the video on screen right now. I hope to see you over there soon. Until then, peace.